Hello and welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Today we will be discussing GS paper questions which appeared in 2022 mains exam. Okay. So here we are discussing the questions and discussing the framework of the answer. We request you to kindly take down the answer, write it down, and you can either get it corrected or compare it with the model answer. You can ask for any of it. Okay. So, coming to the first question for today, that is, each year a large amount of plant material called cellulose is deposited on the surface of planet Earth. Okay, the question is, what are the natural processes this cellulose undergoes before yielding carbon dioxide, water, and other end products? So, the focus area of our question shall be cellulose. Okay, so we will first explain what are cellulose, where it is found in plants, and because a large amount of this cellulose is getting deposited, we will be talking about this deposition and the natural processes it is undergoing to release carbon dioxide, water, and other end products. Okay. So to begin with, in introduction, we should be writing about what is cellulose. Okay. So basically, cellulose are in plant cell, the outermost wall. This is known as the cell wall. This is made up of cellulose. Okay, cellulose is basically a complex carbohydrate. Okay, a polymer chain of carbohydrates. Okay, which is complex in its nature. It has to be simplified. Okay, it has to be the simplest form of carbohydrate we know is glucose, sucrose, fructose, and all that. Okay. This complex carbohydrate is a chain which is forming the cellulose. Okay, so this is usually found in plants. This is present in plant material as we discussed in the cell wall of the plants, and this is digested by cattle usually in their rumen. In their rumen, this cellulose is digested. Okay, so these cattle who are feeding on these plants, they will digest this cellulose. Okay. Now coming to the body part of our question, which says the question was what are the natural processes the cellulose is undergoing for decomposition to form carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so basically cellulose, breaking down of cellulose is known as cellulysis. Breakdown of cellulose is known as cellulysis. So in this, cellulose is breaking down into smaller subparts. As we discussed, this is a complex carbohydrate. So basically under this breakdown, it will get converted into simple carbohydrates. Okay. Now this simple carbohydrate ultimately will lead to formation of glucose plus sugar, and this glucose is consumed by aerobic respiratory bacteria. Okay. There are certain bacteria who will undergo aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration means they will consume oxygen. This aerobic respiration of this bacteria will release carbon dioxide and water. So this is the natural process. But artificially also cellulose can be broken down. The required temperature is around 350 degrees centigrade. So at 350 degrees centigrade, this cellulose is broken down, and that process is known as pyrolysis. In any case, this will lead to huge amount of emission of carbon dioxide. So cellulose breaking down leads to emission of carbon dioxide, and because the cellulose amount is also too much, so the amount of carbon dioxide emission is also too much because of the breaking down of the cellulose, be it natural process through aerobic respiration or artificial processes through pyrolysis. Okay. So all in all, role of microorganism is immense. Microorganism will undertake this natural breaking down. Okay, and the natural breakdown decomposes cellulose in a complete manner with less emission of heat, less emission of carbon dioxide. Role of microorganism becomes immense in breaking down of the cellulose. Okay, so that was the body part of our question. Now coming to the conclusion part, because it was a 10 marker, so we can simply conclude by stating some of the uses of cellulose in for natural processes. Whatever cellulose is getting generated, we are making it, we are using this to make use of in paper industry, even in textile based industry, and even in sanitation based industries. Okay, so it is used in several industries. So with that we can conclude about the importance of cellulose, the natural material which is present amongst us. Okay, now let us move to the next question, which says, discuss in detail the photochemical smog. We need to discuss in detail the photochemical smog, emphasizing its formation. So we need to discuss about the formation of photochemical smog, its effect. Okay, what are the effects of photochemical smog and the mitigation measures? How do you reduce the occurrence of photochemical smog? Okay, we need to discuss all three in terms of the Gothenburg Protocol. Okay, so Gothenburg Protocol of 1999, which was talking about the photochemical smog, we need to discuss about photochemical smog in terms of its formation, its effect and its mitigation. Okay, so obviously then the first part of our answer should be the first keyword, that is photochemical smog itself. We need to discuss about the photochemical smog. So photochemical smog, as the name suggests, it is a smog, that is smoke plus fog. Okay, so this is smoke plus fog, wherein fog is condensation occurring at the ground level. This is plus smoke. This includes any suspended matter. It can be particulate matter, it can be black carbon, anything, but it should be suspended particulate matter. Okay, it should be suspended in air. Okay, so this is smog. Now what about photochemical? We are calling this as photo because this is happening in presence of sunlight only, which makes this as a secondary pollutant. Now, what is a secondary pollutant and what is a primary pollutant? Primary pollutant is something that is causing harm to human beings or living beings directly. Okay. For example, excess amount of carbon dioxide is absorbing greenhouse gases, or excess amount of methane is absorbing greenhouse gases, or any gas which is poisonous, which is inhaled, can cause problems. So these are all primary pollutants, but we are calling this as secondary pollutants because it is reacting with the presence of, in the presence of sunlight or in water or in presence of hydrocarbons or in presence of anything. It is reacting and then causing harm. So this is the secondary pollutant. So photochemical smog, we are calling this as photochemical smog because it is occurring in presence of sunlight only, and certain chemical reactions are undertaking. Certain chemical reactions are going to form this smog. Okay, so photochemical smog occurs in presence of sunlight. So the occurrence condition shall be summers, plus it should be dry. Dry summers. We are calling this as dry because for the occurrence of photochemical smog, we need something suspended in air. If the atmosphere is wet, so all this gets deposited on the surface of earth. We want this to be suspended in air. Only in that case the smog condition can occur. In that is the reason for occurrence of photochemical smog, we need excessive amount of sunlight. That is most commonly occurring during summer, plus dry summers, because we want this suspended particulate matter. Okay. So with that you can write the introduction part. Now let us move towards the body part. So the body part, the question was asking, we need to write about the photochemical smog, its causes or formation. Okay, or we also had to discuss about the effect once the photochemical smog is formed. What are the effects? What mitigation measures are required? How do you reduce the occurrence of photochemical smog? And what is the protocol? Gothenburg Protocol talks about. Okay, so coming to the body part, the formation of photochemical smog occurs most commonly due to vehicular emission. Vehicular emission will lead to formation of nitrogen oxides. So NO is the compound which is formed because of the vehicular emissions. This combines with a suspended oxygen molecule in air and forms ozone. This is the tropospheric ozone. Okay, so this is the tropospheric ozone which is formed in the first part of the reaction. Now this volatile organic compound, again because of the vehicular emission, this combines with nitrogen and tropospheric ozone to form the secondary pollutant or the photochemical smog by the name peroxyacetyl nitrate. This is just one example of photochemical smog. It can be any other thing. Okay, so peroxyacetyl nitrate is formed because of this chemical reaction, because of the presence of volatile organic compound, because of the presence of nitrogen and tropospheric ozone, which is together forming pan, that is peroxyacetyl nitrate. Now, what are the effects? This we understood that this is the formation of photochemical smog. Once it is formed, it causes, because it gets suspended in air for a very long period of time, so it causes skin and eye irritation. It can cause harmful effects on your skin with rashes, or it can also cause shortness of breath because the air is not pure, so you will feel like inhaling more and more amount of air to get more amount of oxygen. So somebody can face this shortness of breath. Or if all of this gets deposited on water body or on sand or on soil, it can lead to acidification of water body or acidification of soil. It can also lead to eutrophication, excessive amount of nutrients added to water body. Excessive amount of nutrient entering into water body causing eutrophication. So this can also occur. These are also some of the effects of photochemical smog. Now, how do you mitigate this? How do you reduce the occurrence of photochemical smog? The most common solution can be, if this is getting emitted from vehicular emissions, so we reduce the vehicular emissions. We reduce our dependency towards the fossil fuel. That can be one of the solutions. Or we can install catalytic converter in our engines. This catalytic converter is basically responsible for reduced emission of nitrogen oxides. So reduced emission of nitrogen oxide can occur because of this catalytic converter, or electrostatic precipitators, which are responsible for absorbing the suspended air molecules, suspended particulate matter. If this can be absorbed through electrostatic precipitator, then we can reduce the suspended molecules in air. Okay, so these can be some of the mitigation efforts by which we can avoid the occurrence of photochemical smog. So, what is the protocol talks about? The Gothenburg Protocol, which was signed in 1999, had initially VOC, ammonia, sulfur and NOx. We had to reduce, under the protocol, we had to reduce the emission of volatile organic compounds or ammonia or sulfur or nitrogen oxides. But it has been recently amended to also include PM, that is particulate matter, as well as black carbon. So basically Gothenburg Protocol is talking about reduction of emission of all these elements in air. And it is also talking about reduction in occurrence of acidification or eutrophication or tropospheric ozone. Okay, so basically the protocol is talking about reduction in occurrence of either photochemical smog or acidification or eutrophication. So that only we had to discuss in body. Now coming to the conclusion part. So basically, as we discussed, amongst the mitigation efforts, you can write electrostatic precipitators or catalytic converters. We can also shift towards non-fossil fuel based energy or shift towards renewable based energy. That can be one of our mitigation strategies. Okay, so this can be a natural solution of the persisting problem currently. Okay, so with that you can conclude your answer. Now let us move to the third and final question for today. That is, explain the mechanism and occurrence of cloudburst in the context of Indian subcontinent. So we had to explain the mechanism and occurrence of cloudburst in the occurrence of Indian subcontinent. Discuss two recent examples. How are cloudbursts occurring? So we had to explain the mechanism of formation of cloudburst and the occurrence. So we had to explain the areas which are more prone to cloudburst in India. Okay, and we had to discuss two more recent examples. So very recently we have had frequent occurrence of cloudburst in India. We had to mention about those examples. So first of all, in the introduction we can write about cloudburst. So what is a cloudburst? When we have, this is the condition for calling it out. This is the condition provided by Indian Meteorological Department, IMD. which says that if we have more than 100 mm rainfall per hour, okay, in a particular small area, if we have a rainfall of more than 100 mm per hour, we are calling this as cloudburst. Okay, cloudburst basically means, for a conceptual understanding, it basically means extremely heavy amount of rainfall for a very short period of time. So it causes flash floods. So cloud burst can be explained like this, and it is you can further explain it by stating ki it means excessive amount of rainfall. Plus, the extent of occurrence of cloud burst will not be in general 20 to 30 kilometers square per area. Okay, within this area itself, it will be existing for a very short space. Spatial expansion of cloudburst is also very small. Okay, so that we had to explain in the introduction part. Now coming to the body part. So in body, we can write about the mechanism of formation of cloudburst. So how is cloudburst formed? It is most commonly because of the cumulonimbus clouds. So cumulonimbus clouds, we know that they are vertically extending clouds. They are of vertical extent. They are very tall, okay, and they capture too much amount of latent heat because it has too much amount of water vapor in it. So as soon as this water vapor will release heat and it gets converted in condensed, gets converted into water droplet and starts occurrence in the form of rainfall, it will release too much amount of heat. So it is a carrier of latent heat. It is a carrier of too much amount of water vapor. Okay, which is leading to formation of this tall clouds. Okay, so cumulonimbus clouds can be one of the reason for occurrence of cloudburst. Plus, it can also be because of the orographic lift. So we have a set of clouds which is moisture laden, which is containing water vapor, and it meets a mountain. So once it starts climbing over the mountain, right, it will undergo condensation and will cause rainfall on the windward side of the mountain. So this is known as the orographic lift. Orographic means mountain sourced. So because the mountain is responsible for lifting this cloud, we are calling this as an orographic lift. Okay. It can also be because of the convectional currents lifting airdrops. So what happens is, imagine a piece of land of 20-30 kilometers. This is extremely heated. So what happens is the air above this ground, it will start to rise, it will get condensed, and the water vapor will be formed. The cloud formation will occur. Now, once the rainfall starts occurring, once the rain drops starts coming towards the ground, it will again face the convectional current because the land is too much hot. It is bringing warm air to sky. It is causing increase. It is causing the rising warm air. So this rising warm air will push this raindrop again in sky, and again its size will get enlarged. So bigger amount of raindrops will occur. This is known as the convectional currents, which is responsible for lifting the raindrops, and the size of the raindrops increases. The amount of water vapor in the region increases, which causes immense amount of rainfall in a small area. Okay, so these can be the three reasons for occurrence of cloudburst. But cloudburst can also occur if a huge amount of clouds is getting trapped in a mountain valley. This is the most common reason why we are facing occurrence of cloudburst in Uttarakhand region. It is surrounded by a list of mountains, and the cloud is getting trapped here. And so as soon as the cloud is trying to lift itself on any side of the mountain, orographic lift will occur and it will cause rainfall, huge amount of rainfall in that region. Okay. So apart from mechanism, we also had to discuss about the occurrence, right? So areas which are prone to occurrence of cloudburst includes the northeastern region because of the funneling effect. This is known as the funneling effect. What is happening in Uttarakhand also is the funneling effect. Okay. In the northeast also, in Mumbai also, sometimes cloudburst can occur. Okay, because the Western Ghats is broken at a small passage there, which is causing the clouds to converge at one point, and which is causing too much amount of rainfall in that region. Plus, the consequences. The question was also asking us about the consequences. So the consequences, as we know, that too much amount of rainfall is occurring in a region, so it can cause flash floods. Plus, it can also cut down loose banks into the river. So along the river bank, whatever loose material is present, it can be cut down, because river is carrying too much amount of sediment. It has force, it can cut down the river bank. So it is happening. It did happen in Uttarakhand flash floods also. It is happening. It occurred in last year also, 2022 floods of Uttarakhand also it occurred. So cutting down of loose banks into the river, plus increased sediment load causing huge damage. So because the river is now carrying too much amount of load, sediment load, it is also causing damage to the nearby structures, infrastructure. Okay. So some of the recent examples can be, the Amarnath caves. What we faced, the flash floods of Amarnath was a consequence of occurrence of cloudburst, or the flash floods of Uttarakhand, which also occurred. Both these occurred in the year 2022. This was also one of the consequences of cloudburst in the region. Okay. So these two examples we can discuss. Then comes the final part, that's a conclusion. In conclusion, we need to discuss about forecasting, better forecasting. The problem with cloudburst is because it is forming immediately. Let's say within 1.5 days span itself it is forming. So the prediction of such kind of cloudburst becomes difficult. So we need to devise better forecast mechanisms, sharper radars who can predict such kind of formation of clouds. Okay. So this can be put up in the conclusion. Plus, you can write about the mitigation efforts, how to handle flash floods in such conditions, or what should be the infrastructural advice, what kind of infrastructure, what kind of tourism should be supported in these areas. That can be some of the part of our conclusion or the mitigation strategies. Okay. So with that, we conclude our discussion for today. Again, I would request you to please try to write these answers on your own, and then you can compare it or get it evaluated. Thank you so much and all the very best.